Hi, I'm Amy Shannon, and welcome to another video where I will be doing a reading from my Reminiscence of Ballstown, Echoes and Whispers of Forgotten Legends. When I was doing my research for my first book, I'll just plug that one in here as well. Ballstown, a community of history and friends, neighbors, and lingering spirits. And it's all about Ballstown and how it came about, its people, and its rich history. So when I was doing that book, I became very intrigued by the Booth family. There were several families that were Booths, and they were not necessarily related. Uh, Andrew Booth is not related to the two Booths or the Booth family that I'm going to be speaking about, but Andrew Booth is also was one of the he was a telegraph operator. So he actually was trained by Western Union, and he did their telegraph as well as other things. And of course, that is even a skill today if you know Morse code and you know how to read it and decipher it. And everybody had to make sure you had to be trustworthy because you knew everybody's information. Anyway, so the booths I am going to talk about today is Lubius and Lucretia Booth. And I'm hoping that I pronounced his name correctly. I actually looked it up to see how it would be pronounced. And according to Google, it says Lubius. So if I mispronounce his name, I'm terribly sorry. Um, I was attracted to Lucretia Booth, um, his wife. She is, and I have their photos behind me. Um, she uh, encouraged her husband to open the first female seminary in Ballston Spa. Um, Seminary, actually, the word is just referring to school. Now, when you hear seminary, a lot of people don't think of schools, but necessarily uh, places where priests would go or wannabe priests would have to go in order to get trained on being a priest or whatever. But they use that word for all types of schools. Lucretia Booth's mother had encouraged her father, um, Ebenezer Foote, to open what was called the Albany Academy for Girls, and because she wanted her daughter to have a comparable education as men, as the men did, her male counterparts. Um, and though Betsy Foote could not, because she was female, open a business on her own. She encouraged her husband, who was um, they were a wealthy family, and he also was a popular lawyer at the time. So he created the charter, and Lucretia, who was their only daughter, got the best education, and it became the Albany County for girls, and then there became an Albany County for boys, and now it is a school where it's just the Albany County Academy. Um, so with that, um, I find it so interesting that Lucretia married a man who supported her the way her father supported her mother and her, of course. Um, and she was uh, she was a guiding force behind her husband, though together they did the school, they had children, but they wanted to give girls the same education as the boys would get. So I'm just going to do a little reading. I have always been, ever since I heard about Lucretia, I've been so inspired by her. And this is just kind of a side note. Um, when I did one of my cemetery tours in the Ballston Spa Village Cemetery, I came face to headstone with Lucretia's um, headstone, her monument, I should say, um, along with her husband's. And I also saw all of her children's and grandchildren's. And her mother was actually moved to the cemetery as well. Um, and uh, someone had volunteered, according to the Boston Spa Cemetery Association, someone came in and cleaned many stones, and theirs was one of them. So it was just the perfect, um, beautiful stone. And I just felt that I knew her. She inspires me. And for someone who did what she did in the 1800s, um, and she still has descended as of today. Well, today, in this time and period. So, and that descendant was also very kind in helping me piece together parts of the family puzzle that I didn't know, or I didn't have all the information. So I want to shout out to thank you, Susan Strange, for helping me with that. And also to Margaret King, who is an archivist. Um, and she helped me be able to, she gave me permissions to include images in my book. And so I think, and any information I needed, if I had a question and she had the answer, she would give it to me. So I have a section in the book specific for Lucretia, but now I'm going to talk a little bit about her and her family together. So, ingrained in Ballston Spa, the Lobius Booth family carried a legacy of scholarship, civil service, and hushed silence. Lucretia and Lobius Booth raised children who spearheaded education, including the advancement of academic rights for women, a cause reflected in both their lives and losses. Their descendants continue this legacy, honoring those who passed too soon, while carrying forward the Booth name through public service, teaching, and reminiscence. The family story is one of intellect and endurance, woven through generations of grace. Labius was a lifelong learner, a teacher, father, dutiful husband, and a businessman. He and his wife had an equal partnership along with loyalty, love, and family. Labius was born in Connecticut to his parents Nathaniel Booth and Martha Hinman. In 1821, Labius married Lucretia Foote, a union that would become a cornerstone of education reform and community uplift in Ballston Spa. 3 years later, they co-founded the Ballston Spa Female Seminary, a bold endeavor which, when women's education was still considered ornamental. Lucretia served as principal, shaping curriculum and character, while Labias conducted operations and outreach. They had distinct roles, but were intricately linked, a model of mutual respect and shared mission. But their partnership didn't end at the school door. As Labia served as village trustee, bank director, and superintendent of the poor, it was likely Lucretia's insight, shaped by her work with young women, who informed his decisions. Her experience with education and moral development may have been influenced his leadership in Bible, society, and Christ vestry. After the seminary closed, Lobius turned to manufacturing and finance. Even if the records don't mention Lucretia in these positions, Her organizational ability and community links show she had more than just a quiet role. Together, they raised children who mirrored their values, lawyers, legislators, and educators. Their sons' achievements in law and public service reflect the intellectual rigor and civic spirit nurtured at home. Their partnership was not performative, it was purposeful. Lucretia wasn't simply the wife of Lebbeus Booth or Mrs. Lebbeus Booth. She was a leader, a parent, a moral guide, a strategist, and behind the scenes in his public life. Lucretia took part in societal events. In fact, one news article stated that Mrs. Lebbeus Booth is one of the judges of needlework contest at the county fair. Together they had 12 children. A few of their children died incredibly young. Lebbeus and Lucretia raised an accomplished family as faith, confidence, love, and loyalty in higher education were the base of their family. Elizabeth died at 15 years. John the First died at 6 years old. Martha, the first Martha, died at 3 months old. Martha, the second one, she was born in she was honored in carrying on her older sister's life, even though she never met her. Martha grew up and got married. Excuse me. John II was honored in being named after his older brother, one he had never met, as his life was cut short. Before reaching the age of 20, John established a private school in Cranesville, just 2 miles north of the village of Ballston Spa. John died at 28 years old, his lifelong frailty finally overtaking him. One can only wonder what literary brilliance the world lost with his passing. John had two daughters, Ella Cuddy and Martha Maddie, who died in her sleep at the age of 7. Mary, the first one, she died at 1 year, and she was just shy of taking her first steps. Moss was selected as a commencement orator at Union College in 1847, a sign of his intellect and promise. Mary II died at 1 year, another loss for the Booth family, losing another Mary who held her older sister's name, but left just as quickly as Mary did before her. Isabella entered into the Troy Seminary School in 1854 and preparing to graduate with her class of 1856. However, she died at 17 years old. Lucretia, who was named after her mother, Lucretia carried forward both a name and a legacy of hushed silence. She grew up and married Reverend George Washington Dean. Josiah died at 8 months old, leaving behind an empty cradle in his mother's open arms. Susan grew up and married Moses Mason Robinson in 1877. And let's see, I'm sorry, I missed that. Oh, Lucretia Booth Robinson Evans had 3 children, and then the bloodline ended since she had no grandchildren. However, Ethel Mason Robinson married Edward Bruton Strange in 1910, and they had 4 children. Edwin, Theodore, Hinman, and Susan. All 4 married and have living descendants as of this printing. And in this book, I thank Susan Strange. And she provided me some nice a photo of the 3 sisters that survived. I also share their some articles and the final resting place of the Booth family. And I am just, I know it's silly because I don't know the family, but I feel like the information that I have and making connections that they don't need, they shouldn't be forgotten. They shouldn't just be remembered or a faint story in their descendants' lives. Things happen and people forget. They don't pass on the stories like they used to. Um, but I just because someone just only has a monument or a marker doesn't mean they didn't leave a footprint on someone's life. And I want these people to be remembered for um, what they did, the kind of people that they were, and also to use them as not use them, but have them maybe inspire someone else. Um, in this world, we still know that there are still some inequalities, not necessarily male to female, but just person to person, where doesn't matter if you're society stage or whatever. I think we can learn from the past, past mistakes, and also past inspirations, and aspire to be the best kind of person we could possibly be. Um, so I hope that you will get to know Labius and Lucretia Booth as well as I have. And even though they are gone, their story is far from over. So this has been Amy Shannon. And again, thank you very much for joining me. And if you purchase the book, you could purchase it off of my website. The links are in the description, and you can purchase it directly from my publisher. So again, thank you very much.